All right, we have some breaking news for you guys. We were just finished recording our show, which will be coming up for you here in just a few minutes. But right as we hit end recording, we have found out that the Tampa Lightning have acquired a 7th-round pick in the 2024 NHL draft from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for forwards Pat Maroon and Max Chokovic. And they are also retaining 20% on Pat Maroon's salary. So, wow, that's all I have to say, right? So I'll give my thoughts and then I'll get your guys' comments on this. I did not expect this. We were just talking about how Pat Maroon was going to be a part of that 4th line. And I'm surprised because we're giving up 2 guys in exchange. I get Pat Maroon for a 7th. Pat Maroon's not a super value. We love him. He's a great player, great physical guy to have on your 4th line. But a 7th-round pick, and then we're also retaining 20% of the salary. Now his salary is only $1 million, so it's not that much, but this surprises me. Guys, what are you thinking here? Joe, I'll start with you.
I think it's great. JBB just found a way to move a guy with a no trade clause in his contract. He completely exploded the 4th line that we were complaining about for the majority of the season. He's freeing up cap space, and now with the additional signings that he already has, Maroon was expendable. I like the guy and all, but at the same rate, on the ice, he was I'm not gonna say he was dead weight. You know, he did just win a roller hockey tournament, and you know, maybe he can spend some more time working on his skating in the off season rather than just his hands at these tournaments. He didn't play that well. I'm glad that he's gone, and it opens up some pretty neat possibilities, even with the what was retained.
Joe and Jake know this, but the fans don't know this yet. I spent pretty much the entire show today saying this guy's a good guy. He's a really good guy in the locker room. Pat Maroon, he's the best guy to have in the locker room. I had a day and a half to stomach and cope with Killorn leaving us, but this one is raw. This one definitely hurts. It's not as bad as Killorn, but it's raw. It's right here. This sucks. It truly does. Like you said, I mean, this 4th line has just been exploded over the last 72 hours. I don't know where, like, what the plan is. Where do we go from here? But I don't know. I maybe smell another move coming. Maybe that Hagel extension might be closer than we think. I mean, this is freeing up some room. I really don't know. Maybe a Jeannot extension, but we don't need that much cap space for him, I don't think. This one is pretty random, pretty out there. I don't understand why we retained 20%. This one's definitely confusing to me.
Sometimes you have to retain in order to make the deal happen. You know, you just, again, what sort of value is he really bringing to a team overall?
I'm going to have to disagree with you guys. This is early reactions here. You guys are getting the live reactions of this happening as this recording, but I don't think I love this. I mean, I know Pat Maroon didn't have as good of a year as we would have liked him to have last year, but I think he's a big locker room and physical guy. Listen, how many times did the Lightning go out and trade for big physical guys? Because we needed some of that. We had some of the speed, but didn't have the physicality. I thought he could still contribute to this team. And you guys are saying that this is freeing up cap space, but it's 800. I mean, it's a little bit of cap space, but it is not that. And they're retaining 20%, which I don't really understand.
But I'm saying, we're going to talk about more, but Glendining's a physical piece. Then you've got Jeannot, who's a physical piece.
Archibald.
I mean, so you got it, and they got more speed. I also have a bunch of my guys swinging for the fences on this one. They're hoping that it might be a push because there's a whole bunch of unsigned UFAs as of right now, and I don't know how they're figuring these numbers would work, but they're hoping for a Tarasenko to be acquired to make enough space for him.
Well, so if you send Myers down, which we talk about this later in the show coming up, but if you send Myers down, I think the Lightning have about $3 or $4 million in cap space. Don't quote me on that exact number because Cap Friendly doesn't have that pulled up. So, but it is a little bit more. I don't know if it's Tarasenko numbers, but I'm just surprised. I
Max
think that's
Domi's still available, and he was $3 million last year. And I know that he's suffered a little bit, but that's a someone that could potentially.
He looks like he's signing with the Leafs.
That would make a lot more sense. that would make a lot more sense and make this. It's surprising to me because I fully expected him to be on the team next year, and then just kind of felt out of nowhere. But maybe there's more to this move. Like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes when we have some time to digest this and really figure and see if there's any other additional moves that make this make more sense. Definitely surprising though for sure on this move.
If we weren't so stacked on center depth, I'd say Jonathan Taves.
That's another person. I mean, there's a few potential targets here, and he's making moves to make it happen.
We need another defenseman.
All right, JBB.
That's all I'm saying.
The ball is in your court, as they'll say. Well, guys, we're going to get you back to your regular scheduled programming. Hope you guys enjoy this episode talking about the draft, the free agent class, and so much more. We'll talk to you guys next time.
You're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me, it's Joe Zamataro, Matt Cannon. Guys, we have a lot to talk about today as the offseason is in full swing. Of course, today we're going to be talking about the 2023 NHL entry draft, the bolts that are on the move, like a big-time player, Alex Killorn, recapping the free agency moves the Lightning have made so far and so much more. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, guys, so you don't miss out on future episodes. And you can go check out any of the episodes you may have missed, like our report card series that we've been doing. We just did with one of the former Bolts prospects writers. That was a great one, so I highly recommend to go check that out if you missed it. But guys, before we get into all of it, how you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing pretty well. There's a lot of content to get to. The Lightning made a lot more moves than I was anticipating, so this is definitely going to be a fun one.
And after a very busy and stressful week at work, what better way to unwind and relax and talk about a busy and stressful week in the hockey world?
It's to me, Matt, it is the best way to do it. But before we get into the draft and free agency and all of that fun stuff, do have a couple of news and notes to talk about, if you will. The first thing is Steven Stamkos was awarded the Mark Messier Leadership Award. So Braden Point didn't get his Lady Byng trophy, but Steven Stamkos did add to his hardware collection. So just a quick congratulations to Steven Stamkos. We all know him in Tampa as a fantastic leader, and he was put on display at the NHL Awards as a great leader as well. So congratulations to him. Development camp, guys, has officially begun. So all of the young guys are in Tampa right now, getting things underway. And development camp, it's that first thing that says, we're so much closer to the start of hockey season. It's that, that first little thing that gets you excited. You still got a couple months to go, but we're getting closer here. And the Lightning have also announced their season schedule. The NHL schedule was released just a couple of days ago. And I got to say, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm really excited, especially for the first game, because the Lightning are playing the first game for the entire season. They're taking on the Nashville Predators. It is an early one. I think 5:30 p.m. is when the game is taking place. I know a lot of fans weren't too excited about that in downtown traffic, but they are playing the first game in the NHL season. Joe, I know you had a couple of games you were looking at on your calendar.
Yeah, well, that one's definitely one because it's 5:30 on a Tuesday. Now, I can understand a Saturday or a Sunday or maybe one of the holidays where you get the whole day off, but 5:30 on a Tuesday is to start the season, a little bit of an oddball, in my opinion. Almost feels like some of those baseball start times, right? Where it's like, an afternoon game or something. But it's a home game, so maybe I'll still try skipping out a little bit early to see that one. There are a few games that are interesting though. If you have ever been on a road trip to see the Lightning, specifically. There's like two that caught my eye, and that's on November 2nd, which is Columbus, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal. And those are all pretty close together, reasonable driving distances to be able to, hit up multiple games at the same time. And then also again in the end of February with New York Islanders, New Jersey Devils, and the Philadelphia Flyers. I got a buddy with give him a quick mention with Adam Vosting, he's a huge Lightning fan, and he's made a ton of these trips, and just says that it's so much fun to get on the road and get a couple of games in opposing team venues.
That's still something on my bucket list. I've never seen the Lightning play anywhere other than Amalie.
Oh, we got to get you on a road game. Maybe one down to Sunrise. That's close. That's easy to get to. That'd be a fun one to go to. I definitely for sure want to see more road games for the Lightning, and hopefully one day I can get down. I would love to travel with the team one day. I think when I retire, that's my ultimate goal. Just spend an entire season with the Lightning. That sounds like an ideal retirement for me. I don't know about you guys, but all right, let's get into the draft. What's that? Hey, beat reporter as an announcer, whatever it is. I just want to travel with the team one year. All right, let's get into the draft because there's a lot to talk about. And the Lightning going into the draft, we talked about it here a lot of times on the show that they only had just a couple of picks. 6th round was going to be their first one. We were talking about how a lot of the minor signings they were making was really their draft replacements, but the Lightning ended up being a lot more active than we probably expected them to be. So I'm going to run through all of the draft picks real quick. And then if you guys, we'll talk about some of the players they gave up and what it means for the Lightning. But so with their first pick in the 2nd round, which they traded Ross Colton to get this pick, it was Ethan Gutierrez. And I apologize to any of these young guys if I mispronounce your name. As you guys know, I'm not the best when it comes to pronunciation sometimes, but 30 goals, 39 assists for 69 total points in his last season. The big thing to note from him, guys, is he won the Mike Bossy Trophy, and that is given out to the best QMJHL draft prospect. And a lot of notable players have won that, such as Sidney Crosby, Vincent LeCavalier, a big Lightning legend. So that award isn't just given out to pretty notable award for him to get, and somebody I'm pretty excited about. Now, the next picks was Jason Shongby, and he had 33 goals, 63 assists for 96 points. And the biggest thing to note from him is that he broke his high school scoring record, which was formerly held by TJ Oshie. So another guy making a big impact in his high school with some former NHL players. Lightning did select also defenseman Warren Clark. He had 6 goals, 32 assists for 38 points. Then you had forward Jack Harvey, 40 goals, 34 assists for 74 points for him. And then last but not least, forward Ethan Hay for 17 goals, 11 assists, and 28 points. So not a ton of picks, but more than we expected of them. And of course, as I mentioned, Ross Colton and Corey Perry were the 2 guys that were traded. Perry was traded during the draft. Colton was traded before the draft to get a 2nd round pick for Colton and a 7th for Perry. And guys, I really like the Corey Perry trade. Obviously, you would have loved to have a lot of our guys come back, but we knew we were going to lose them. But to get something for a unrestricted free agent, I think is pretty impressive. But overall, I really like the draft class. I don't know if you guys have any specific thoughts on the draft class overall or on Ross Colton and Corey Perry. Now moving on. Matt, I'll start with you.
With the drafting, nobody was expecting the Lightning to really be a player in this draft at all. But it's always a bold move when they trade up in the draft. Acquiring a 2nd round pick. Of course, it comes at the expense of Ross Colton, but it was, I hate to say, a necessary evil. We knew we weren't going to be able to re-sign him with the goal of still icing a competitive team and hopefully bringing back Killorn, which ultimately did not happen. I still think it was the right move to do. A 2nd round pick, an early 2nd round pick, is still pretty fair. So I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of hopeful for Ethan Gutierrez. Hopefully he can develop rather well. I didn't know he won that Mike Bossy award, and if there's other notable players, like you said, like Crosby and LeCavalier, that's some elite company there. So hopefully he can develop rather well. And again, I really haven't done much of my homework on the draft so far, but like you also did mention losing Corey Perry. That one does kind of hurt, but at the same time, at least we got something for him. I think it was a 7th round pick.
7th round pick, correct.
And then Chicago ended up signing him to I think just a 1-year deal at $4 million.
That's a lot.
It's a steep.
They got to hit that cap
for sure.
That cap floor. That's the whole point is they're overpaying in order to make sure they hit the league minimum.
Exactly. I still don't quite understand it because I'm 99% sure Chicago is only doing this to trade him at the deadline, and I think the max you can retain on a salary is 50%. Who's going to want Corey Perry at 2 mil unless you get a third team involved? I'm getting way too deep into other teams that don't involve us, but regardless, it was an entertaining draft for sure. A little sad, but at least we got a hopeful future ahead.
You got to imagine that this whole weekend, I guess maybe just today, maybe he's waiting until the 4th of July, that JBB is like, he's got to crash hard, right? Like he's been so busy trying to make all these moves and keep the team having life. I got caught a little bit with my pants down around my ankles because I had no idea who any of the late picks were. I wasn't anticipating the Lightning being active or involved, and if the player wasn't named Bedard, essentially it kind of fell off my radar there. But man, to end up making all these moves, and especially when you get someone like Colton and Perry, who their values not really there, right? They're not going to be signed with the team, but you still translate that into some potential. Just hats off to JBB for being able to pull that off. And man, that's he said it was going to be a busy and a very difficult summer for getting these signings done. And you can see just through all these moves how hard he's having to work. I mean, his phones must have been ringing off the hook, or maybe he was wearing his dial on the other GMs. There was one more thing that I did want to mention, and that's Matthew Mania, who was drafted in the 5th round by the LA Kings. This is a kid that was born and raised here in Brandon, Florida, playing at good old ISF, or TGH Iceplex as it's known now. And, it's really freaking cool to see what has been done in the area to promote high school hockey, to promote youth hockey, and everything that Vinnick's done to really build it. And congratulations to Mania. It's really cool to see the support of all of the local youth hockey players.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully maybe we get some Tampa grown talent in the near future. Maybe one day we'll get that Tampa pick drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning, but congratulations to him for sure on making it to the NHL. And speaking of local talent, you guys want to support all the local teams? I know a great place to go do it. You head over to RBLRsports.com, and you can get some of the awesome team-inspired merch that we have. Rowdies, Rays, Bucks, Lightning, you name it. You go over there and you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order. Links, as always, are in the description as well right here on YouTube. So again, shop.rblrsports.com to check out the awesome local team-inspired merch over there.
And I do have one thing to say. If I have not sweat through this hat in the time that I've owned it, it's a good quality hat. Like it genuinely is. It's not sun-faded yet. I haven't sweat through it. It's actually a really fine quality.
Make sure to head over there and use code BOLTS.
He hasn't little known fact, Matt hasn't taken it off since it came in the mail.
It's just that good.
It's true. I don't think he off. I will say with the draft class overall, I do really like a lot of the picks the Lightning have made. At the end of the day, though, we're not experts, so we don't know how these guys are going to turn out. It's going to take a couple of years, so not many of these guys I don't think are going to make the jump immediately. Like Joe, you were saying, if it was a player not named Connor Bedard, not many of those guys are going to make the immediate jump. So, I don't know how long it'll be until we see some of these guys making NHL debuts. But as we know, the Lightning always have one or two guys that like to pop up out of nowhere and make a big impact. So hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, whatever it is, we can start to see those guys make an impact. And that's usually when you can actually draft or judge a draft class, if you will. But I do like what we did. I like a lot of the players that we've got, and hopefully they can make an impact. But all right, the big portion of this show is free agency. And again, I don't think many of us guys expected the Lightning to be super active in free agency. But once again, they were making moves, a ton of moves. And I'm going to run through all of the free agency signings that the Lightning made, and then we'll kind of talk about overall how you guys are feeling some of the players that have now moved on for the Lightning. So first and foremost, the first signing that the Lightning made was forward Connor Sherry to a 3-year deal at an AAV of $2 million. He had 82 games played, 15 goals, 22 assists for 37 points with the Washington Capitals. And then the next one was for Josh Archibald, a 2-year contract, $800,000 AAV, 62 games played, 6 goals, 6 assists, and 12 points with the Penguins. They also picked up forward Luke Glendening from the Dallas Stars. He was signed to a 2-year deal with an AAV of $800,000, 70 games played, 3 goals, 3 assists, and 6 points with Dallas. And then the goaltender, all right, I'm going to do this right, Jonas Johansson for a 2-year deal at $775,000 with Colorado. Only 3 games played last year. Did have a 2-0 record with a 2.10 goals against average and a .932 save percentage. When the Lightning weren't done there, they were still making moves. They signed forward Logan Brown to a 1-year, $775,000 deal. He had 30 games played, 2 goals, 4 assists, and 6 points. And then they went out and got forward Mitchell Shafee to a 1-year, $775,000 deal. He's a more of a crunch guy. Probably won't see him at the NHL level. And the last one they made, which was just today, was defenseman Calvin DeHaan for a 1-year, $775,000. He had 53 games played last year with Carolina and had 2 goals, 10 assists for 12 points. I know that was a lot of information I just spewed out there, but guys, for me, my favorite signing was probably Connor Sherry from the Washington Capitals. This is a guy who's a little bit of an older guy now. He's 31, only 31 years old, so actually not that old. But he's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He won both those cups with Pittsburgh. He knows how to play with a lot of veteran guys. We played with Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin. Now he's going to be playing with Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point. And he's a pretty consistent guy who can get 30 points or even 40 points as he's had. He had 50 points early in his season in Pittsburgh. So I really like this signing. I think he's a guy that can make an impact quickly and in the top 6 as well.
Yeah, this one really stuck out to me. Of course, I wasn't expecting much activity on free agent day, but I really do like this one. The term might be a year too long for my opinion, but I think the cap hit is very reasonable at $2 million. He did have a really good year in Washington, and he is a versatile player. He'll play anywhere between the first, second, and third line. Like, he played with Sidney Crosby. He played on his wing. He really can inject him anywhere, and really his biggest asset and what he is known for is his speed. He is a speedy winger, which is something the Lightning have desperately needed over the last couple of seasons. Of course, you know, there's really no shortage of it with guys like Braden Point, but it seems like a lot of the other speedy guys we've had in the past, like Yanni Gordon, Matthew Joseph, they're all gone now. So I think this is a really, really good signing. Again, it might be a year too long, but at the same time, it could age like wine. I think it was a very, very smart move and a low-key move. But I think he'll slot in just fine on a third-line role.
Yeah, I mean, you might even see him bumped up to the second line there. He is used to playing with, like you said, some big talent. The other person that he was playing with now and again when he was in Washington is Alexander Ovechkin. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard about Ovechkin, but one thing that he does like is to shoot off one-timers as a right-handed shot from the left side of the ice. Not that we have anybody on the second line of the Lightning who might fit that bill, but he might, honestly pair up pretty nicely with Stamkos and be somebody that can get in there, get to some pucks, and then feed them to the ultimate goal scorer.
Another guy that I really liked the Lightning picked up, and Matt, I know you were super excited about it when they announced it, was Luke Glendening. And at first glance, you look at his stats, the typical goals, assists, points, only 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points last year. You're like, okay, this guy doesn't seem like he's all that. He never really had a great season. I mean, his best season came with Detroit, where he had 23 points, 10 goals, 13 assists. But then look at the face-off percentages, and he is every single year consistently at right about 55%, 51 on a down year. Last year, he was 59% in the face-off circle. And as we know, the Lightning typically do not have a lot of guys that are really good in the face-off circle. The Lightning did get really good at face-offs late in the season this last year, but I really like that they added a dedicated face-off guy. So I honestly really like this signing of Luke Glendening. Matt, what about you?
So I had been a fan of his for a while. I remember back in the Dallas series in the bubble, I was a fan of his game. I've nothing spectacular about him. He's not flashy whatsoever, but he's just responsible. He's concise. He's consistent. But that was really all I knew about him. I did end up asking my buddy Robert. He's a big Dallas fan. I was like, "What can we expect with Luke Glendening?" And he says, "Glenny is a great guy. He'll be a great addition to your locker room. On the ice, he's a fourth line faceoff master. He will probably slot into the first PK unit. He'll put in a few goals here and there, in addition to one or two amazing shorties. But he's almost purely a defensive forward, but you are going to love him." Supposedly, he's a great locker room guy, like he said. Again, I had been a fan of his for a while now. Nothing flashy or spectacular about his game, but I think he'll be a good replacement for Belmar, who had a pretty down year for our standards. I think he will be a big, big upgrade for our fourth line center position.
Yeah, I mean, you just brought up the name I was going to with Belmar. Being able to take face-off draws on the fourth line and get the win there is so critically important because those guys need to be able to eat up some ice time and maintain a bit of puck possession, especially when you look at who our fourth line might end up being. And, Glendening is obviously going to be there with Patrick Maroon. And last year we had such a lack of control on that fourth line. To start off with puck possession would be huge. And then, honestly, I feel like Belly was starting to do a pretty good job on the PK later in the season. And, who else are you going to slot in there in order to kill off some minutes? And if Glendening's going to be able to fit the bill for that, that's something excellent for the team. Not someone that was necessarily overpaid, and he's got a veteran presence. It's a good signing.
He's a pretty physical guy as well. Like, he's not going to be throwing hits like Tanner Jeannot or Pat Maroon or anything like that, but he really doesn't mind to lay the body, and he's also not any stranger to dropping the gloves either. I was watching some of his fights earlier today. He doesn't win all of them, but I didn't see any that he clearly lost. So I am excited. He looks like a pretty good face puncher and a really good defensive forward. I think we're in good hands here. And again, at a very reasonable cap hit, 800,000. I'll take that all day for a fourth line center.
Listen, the Lightning didn't have a ton of cap space to work with, so JBB had to make cheap signings, and I think a lot of the guys that he signed, even though they were cheap, were quality guys. Joe, was there anybody else in this free agency class that stood out to you that you liked from the Lightning?
Yeah, the Archibald signing is good. He's someone that is 30. He hasn't completed a full season, but looks like he's somebody that might be able to come in with a little bit of speed on the fourth line. He's also a decently fast guy. So that's a little bit of extra depth, but he just as easily could be replaced by a crunch member that ends up proving themselves in this development camp that is going on and then into the full camp right before season.
From the people that I've asked, Archibald is actually a pretty liked guy. He kind of like Glendening. You know what you're getting with him. Very not a one-way player, one-dimensional player, but just you know what you're getting with him. But Archibald, he is a very physical player. Also, I do want to make note that him and Mikhail Sergachev did fight earlier this past season. So that's another teammate or two opponents that are now teammates. But he's a very physical guy. He likes to lay the body. He does not mind at all dropping the gloves. Probably a little bit more than Glendening. No, definitely a little bit more than Glendening. You can expect him to be physical. Again, offense is not really what I'm going to be expecting from him one bit. But again, a physical guy, and he'll be probably a really good fourth line wing, maybe third line. Or, you know what? He could be replaced by a crunch guy. You know what you're getting, but at the same time, hopefully someone can come in and steal his job. That's the goal, right?
So, Matt, you mentioned that he had a fight with Sergachev earlier. The last guy to have a fight with one of our guys and then come over to the team was Mikey Eastimont. So if that's any indication of how this guy's going to play, I'm excited to see what he can do. Maybe that's the factor. If you fight a guy on the Lightning, you're going to have a pretty decent season. Who knows? He's
Real quick, do you think that Eastimont owes Braden Point a steak dinner?
I think we all owe Braden Point a steak dinner.
That's a great way to. No, just because I'm pretty sure Point kind of took it to him. So if anything, maybe Point's kind of make up for it. I don't think.
Well,
he owes
I was more thinking that may have cost him an award.
Oh, that's true for the Lady Bing Trophy. Yeah, you know what? Maybe he does need to treat him out to a little steak dinner. I didn't even think about that.
I wonder if actually Point treated him out to a steak dinner before the awards ceremony, put it on Instagram, and then made sure that everyone knew that they're buddy buddy. That would have been the sportsmanship that would have been required.
He was up against some tough competition in that award, but maybe if he would have done that, that would have put him over the edge there for the Lady Bing Trophy. I want to ask you guys on the goaltender signing the Lightning made. Johansson, who was formerly with the Colorado Avalanche. Now you look at his stats; he's only played a total of 35 games played. He's been with Buffalo, Colorado, and Florida. As I mentioned, he only had played 3 games last year, was 2-0 though in the 2 starts that he had. And JBB did say that he expects him to be the backup for Andrei Vasilevsky. I know a lot of the comments on the Twitter sphere and, a lot of Lightning fans were not too sure on him and kind of 50-50. So I wanted to see if you guys had any thoughts on this goaltender. Personally, to me, it seems like he has some potential here. We've seen, like last year, he was 2-0, had a really couple of good games. And with being behind Andrei Vasilevsky and learning from him and the great goaltending coaches that the Lightning do have, I think he could be a pretty decent backup. But Matt, I'll start with you. Any thoughts on this guy?
I don't have any thoughts personally, but I did do some asking around, and I asked a couple Avs fans, omitting Eureka, but I wouldn't be concerned if I heard it from one person, but I heard it from 3 different people that he might be the worst goalie in the league. That's some tough criticism.
That's tough criticism.
Yeah, and he's got good stats this year, but I've heard from one Florida fan of mine. He said he was terrible with us. He just cannot find any sort of stability. He's on waivers or he's traded for a 7th or something like that. Future considerations. He can't find any kind of stability, and he was on a pretty darn good Avs team last year. I don't know what to expect with him. I've heard people say he's one of the coolest, nicest guys, just always in a good mood. That's great. You can be a good guy. I just want you to be a good goaltender. It's kind of an obsolete job, backing up Andrei Vasilevsky. I was expecting Hugo to make the jump, but I don't know. I haven't heard much good things about Jonas Johansson, but hopefully he can prove them all wrong. I'm open to I'm open-minded about him for sure.
Well, I mean, realistically, you only need a backup goaltender that has Vasi as the primary to win a handful of games. And if the team is strong enough, you can almost be done with any backup goaltender in there. I don't like to necessarily use the word question. I don't know if I question the signing, but it's definitely one that, raised my eyebrow. But really, you don't need much. And who knows, if something happens, then a trade could possibly be made. But the truth is, all the Lightning need to do is get into the playoffs, and then who's going to take over. And I don't think this is a player that's going to prevent the Lightning from getting into the playoffs. I think this is also, excuse me, more of a it's something to also help the crunch, because Alnefelt is a great goalie for the crunch, and by keeping him in the A for a little bit longer, you're really giving a chance to compete for all those players that are within the organization, which keeps your farm system stronger and helps players gain confidence and allows them to excel. It's not like Alnefelt was going to ever come up and be a replacement for Vasi. He may only play for, if he played more than 20 games for the Bolts, barring a and
don't even say it.
Okay, I won't. All right, you're right. If he plays more than 20 games naturally for the Bolts, I'd be super surprised. So I feel like Alnefeld's a lot more of a guy that they're going to let his value continue to increase, and then he could be traded to a team for a primary role, and that's where you'll get value out of him. But for right now, don't bring him up to play a handful of games, even if he plays them exceptionally well. Use them down, and then have a backup goalie that can win you 35% on the low end of the games that they start, and the Lightning they'll be all right.
Well, look at the backup goaltenders in the past for the Lightning. I think a lot of them have deserve more credit than they've gotten. But as you just said, Joe, right? They only need to win like 50% of their starts. I mean, it's not like these guys are making or breaking the Lightning season, and Vasilevsky is the guy that takes over. And I think learning from Vasilevsky is a huge thing. And like you guys were saying with the forwards, right? There could be some crunch guys that beat him out in development camp. Same thing on the goaltender side. Who knows? Maybe Hugo has an unbelievable season. The Lightning are like, all right, let's give him his shot. And he does take over. Maybe not. Or like you were saying, Joe, he stays in the AHL and then becomes a more valuable asset and then becomes a better goaltender overall for the Lightning in the future. So it's just a backup goaltender spot. He could be good. He could not. And it's not like the Lightning are locked down and he's the starter for the next 5 years or something like that. So I don't mind it. Now, I do want to ask you guys about the defensive side of things. I'm not going to ask specifically about this player. I'm going to kind of lump this in. But the Lightning made a signing today, and that was Calvin DeHaan. I apologize for the names there. And he was a guy that a lot of the Lightning fans were like, looking at the defense, and they weren't thrilled about it. They were saying, I don't like this defense going into the season. Although I will say it's basically the one that we had last year, and they were middle of the pack defensively in goals against per game last year. I think there's a lot of potential there. But he's another left-handed defenseman, probably some depth. But I do really like this guy. He's really well liked in the advanced analytics community. He's got really good defensive stats when it comes to there. But basically my question for you guys is, how do you feel overall about the entire team now as it looks right now? Of course, there could be some crunch guys from development camp and then in the preseason that make an impact and take over some spots. But do you think the Lightning are worse on paper? And how is that going to translate into next season? Matt, I'll start with you.
I'm comfortable. I think they did the Julian Brisebois and staff. I think they did as good of a job as they could have done with this $1 million raise with the salary cap, new contracts coming on the books, or extensions coming on the books. I think they have done as good a job as they really could have. Maybe getting a better defenseman or an extra defenseman or something like that, but I'm really not going to critique it all that much. I am satisfied with what they did. Really, the only final nail in the coffin is getting Tanner Jeannot re-signed. I'd still love to see him back with this team, especially after what we gave up for him.
We better see him back on this team. That's all I'm going to
say. He will be, but still, it's a door left open. No, I am satisfied with what we have done, and I will do a real quick thing on Calvin DeHaan. He is a kind of like Luke Glendening. I know I've used this trope 5 times already, but you know what you're getting with him, and he is a great guy. He is a career plus player. He's never super far into the pluses, but he's only had like 2 minus seasons on some pretty terrible Blackhawks teams. He is defensively sound. Carolina players liked him. He's well liked wherever he goes, and I'm, again, another trope I've said a billion trillion times. He is an awesome guy. I'm emphasizing it, an awesome guy. He's a locker room guy. I've never heard a bad word said about him, his personality. Everybody loves him. You can't have enough of that in the locker room. So I think it's a good signing. Defensive defenseman. He might not play every game. He probably won't play every game. But I do, overall, I like this signing, and I like the rest of what Julian and company did.
And the Lightning really do like having right-handed defensemen on the right side, left-handed on the left, and don't, they will in a pinch, have them on their opposite side in order to be able to fill out a roster. But this answers some questions for basically third line pairing on the right-hand side for right-hand D. Checks a lot of boxes and is someone that hopefully will be more serviceable than, some other players that we've had in the past. Overall, I am hard to say. It's hard to say that the Lightning are improved from last year, but there's so many moving parts. A lot has to be seen yet, including, the fact that there's a roster spot, and God, we've talked about them too much, but it's possible that ABB could finally get his chance to be regular on a top 6 line, because that's not a guy that can play in a bottom 6 role. And realistically, this is probably his last shot to make it to the NHL and to make it stick. So you got to think that this whole summer he's going to be working his butt off to make sure that he's physically ready Hopefully he is mentally ready, and I would love for him to be able to make the club, bring in his speed, hands, vision to be able to really put together a great season for himself, which will help the team. If he can play well enough to be up on the top six, that'll really change the look of what we have. That being said, there still is some cap space left. There's also some free agents. I wouldn't be surprised with the way that these signings are if a lot of them are just to see what works and then trim the fat if you can come trade deadline and leave yourself with more options than basically what the Lightning had last year. So I think this is definitely a playoff capable roster that the Lightning have. And I really hope that they do well and then can still utilize the excess assets and excess cap space that they have right at the trade deadline to make an acquisition that makes a lot of sense. And maybe this time, Jake, you can breathe easy because we're not going to have to give up all the draft picks in the world in order to do it.
Quick question. Other than Connor Sherry, are any of these free agents that we've signed, have any of them been over $1 million? Or are they all like around the 700 to 800, 900 range?
All in that range. They've not been super expensive signings.
That's pretty tidy business. Honestly, it's not bargain bin, but it is. Julian and company have found a lot of value for very little money.
So you still have to sign Tanner Jeannot, who will probably also be in that range, but still leaves some cap space left as well.
And I wasn't really lumping him in with that.
Right,
Yeah,
the free agent signing that they've made, the new guys, there's only been one over $1 million, which is Connor Sherry. Now, the on cap friendly, the Lightning have about $2.175 million left in cap space. That includes Myers. He is still on cap friendlies as the NHL. Who knows where he's going to be? I know he had a pretty decent season, I believe, down in Syracuse. If he goes down back to the crunch, though, that opens up even more cap space for the Lightning. And I like the idea that you said, Joe, about maybe leaving some extra couple million in cap space so Lightning have that flexibility to call guys up and down, and they can make a move at the trade deadline. You mentioned not giving up a ton of picks, though, Joe, but hey, Cap Friendly has a first-round pick back in the horizon for the Lightning now, 3 years away. I'm sure that pick will be gone when it comes to the trade deadline. But you know what? JBB's been really good in years past, as we talked about during that Tanner Jeannot trade, at using those draft picks to acquire great players. So if he throws out a first out there to get us a solid guy to help us in the postseason, I am all for it. Now, overall, yes, we're a little worse on paper, but on paper doesn't really mean anything when you think about it. The Boston Bruins were the best team on paper last year. They couldn't get out of the first round. It happened to the Lightning back in 2019. There's some on paper is only a small part of it. And I actually really like a lot of the signings Lightning have made, as I talked about on this show today. So yes, on paper, are they not as good? Sure. But I like a lot of the guys. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of crunch guys that jump out. And I just also wanted to mention this. How many times have we said that this was the last chance for ABB? I feel like every year, every couple of weeks we say,
this is really it, okay?
This is really it this time.
This is the one.
I don't know. I hope he makes it. I hope he can make an impact. I actually think Connor Sherry is going to be the guy that takes that top 6 role, unless ABB makes an impact at preseason. Maybe we'll have to wait and see here. Matt, you just said something in our chat, which is important to mention. Al Murray is no longer the head of the scouting department for the Lightning. He is now moved into an advisory role, I believe is what it is. So kind of think about this as, I know a lot of people were freaking out about it, but I think of this as the Yzerman to JBB move, right? Except Yzerman left to go to Detroit. Al Murray is staying with the Lightning. So I can't remember off the top of my head who's taking over for him, but he's a guy who started under Al Murray, and obviously he's still with us. So I don't think this is going to make an major impact on the Lightning scouting department overall, but he is now moving into an advisory role for Tampa.
And not that it was poorly reported or anything, but I think a lot got lost in translation. I'm not sure if he was removed from his position, because that's what it was. I'm seeing this as
there was a reporter that said he was potentially going elsewhere, but that was not the case. The Lightning basically talked. I think he wanted to retire and get close to being done, and so the Lightning offered him an advisory position.
To me, this is a promotion.
It's a senior advisor to the general manager is what the official title is. And I'm not familiar with who John Rosso is, but he's the one that's going to become the director of amateur scouting.
Again, I look at it as JVB to Eiserman move. This JVB study under Eiserman, and now he took over for him. That's kind of how I view it. I know it's not identical, but similar situation, I think.
I like the optimism, but I think Murray's a bit older and not quite. He doesn't have that protege tag to him. Like you did say, I think he's getting a little closer to retirement age. Maybe he could, test the waters. In a couple of years or something, an NHL team wants to offer him a general manager job. Considering a lot of general managers get their starts as scouts and as agents. Might be an opportunity for him. It's working your way up within the organization. He might be able to land somewhere in the future, or this might just be a bit of a side shift or something for him, winding down his career. Who knows?
Now, we do have to talk about this. We've been talking about all the additions, and this is probably the tough part of the show, but we do have to mention the guys that are leaving. We talked about Corey Perry and a couple of the other guys as well, Ross Colton. Ian Cole also signed with the Vancouver Canucks. He's not as big of a part. He was only here with the Lightning. We ended up replacing him with another former Carolina defender. I found that kind of funny. But the big one is Alex Killorn, as he went and signed a $25 million contract with the Anaheim Ducks. Alex Killorn, 5th in games played in Lightning franchise history, 6th in goals, 8th in assists, 7th in points, and a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and the thousands upon thousands of memories. Doc Talk, the great Stanley Cup Finals goal in 2015 against the Chicago Blackhawks, is amazing celebrations. Him being memed to death about falling on the ice constantly. Him being from Harvard. We're not going to get to say that anymore. It's a tough one, guys. I got to say, when the Lightning posted the graphic on social media, it really hit me because it was a really well done graphic. I really liked it. But he is officially going to the Anaheim Ducks and moving on. Big piece from the Tampa Bay Lightning moving on, and it makes the team feel very different.
Yeah, it still hasn't fully hit me yet. Any person in their right mind would not turn down that contract. There was no other team in the league that could even get close to what they were offering Killorn. He'd be a madman not to take that. I can't blame him one bit, but it is definitely a very somber moment. He was the longest tenured Bolt. Now it is Steven Stamkos, but it's unfortunate. But again, happy for him. Get that bag. Take the bag and run. But no, this one definitely hurts. I know I asked in the chat, and I know your answer, Jake. But Joe, which one hurt more, losing Palat or losing Killorn?
From a team aspect, what's best for the team, probably Palat. From entertaining support guy that was a little bit, I guess, more vocal, more visible. It's gonna be Killorn. Personally, it sucks. He was always you actually kind of predicted, Matt, that he'd go to, what'd you say?
Yeah,
one of 4 teams. What'd you say?
Yeah, I said he was either going, if he didn't re-sign with the Lightning, he was either going to the Panthers, the Hurricanes, the Ducks, or the Kings. All 4 of those teams.
And what was your reasoning?
Because he could keep his jet ski. It's nice year round. I know Carolinas get a little cold, but all of those are jet ski destinations. And I was kind of right. Yeah, I guess I was right.
And unfortunately, I was right in predicting that he'd be gone. I know I was probably sounding pretty somber when we discussed it a few episodes ago in the season recap for the player, because I thought that he was going to be offered something like 5.5. His previous contract he had is 4.45 per year, and I was thinking that he's going to get 5.5. There's no way that the Lightning can match it, and there wasn't. He got offered 6.25. It's quite a bit more. It's a whole Tanner Jeannot more salary there. So it's you can't say no to that. You can't say no to that. He's 30. What is 34? He? 33 years old. Be 34 in September. 4-year deal.
Okay, so now that we listen, I love Alex Killorn. As we mentioned, all the memories that he had, and you're right. I mean, listen, money talks, right? Go get your money. It's well deserved for him. However, I don't know about you guys, but I have a little bit of a much harder time. Matt, you were asking which one was harder, the Palat or the Killorn. For me, it was Killorn. And the only reason that is for me is because Killorn talked a ton about how he did not want to leave Tampa. He loved Tampa Bay so much. He was saying during the expansion draft that if he ended up in Seattle, then he was going to retire. And so just because of all of that talk, and then you don't go and sign with the Lightning, you go and take the money, to me, it makes it a little more difficult. And listen, again, I get it. Money talks. If I'm offered a $25 million contract. Yeah, it's going to be pretty darn enticing. But just to me, because of all the talk that Killorn pushed about how he didn't want to leave the Lightning, how much he loved it here, to me, that made it a little tougher to swallow just because I thought he would be willing to stay. The rumor is that they offered him a $2.5 million a year for 8-year contract. That's not confirmed. 8 years would have been insane. But my point was the average annual salary there. It's a big difference, but you just talked about so much about how much you love Tampa, and then when it came time to put your money where your mouth is, didn't go.
Well, this guy did go to Harvard, and I only bring that up that maybe he was using a little bit of that lawyer instinct to kind of optimize his opportunities in order to play with Tampa by putting that out in the media in order to get some external pressure on management and try to work the best deal that he possibly could. Not that he wasn't being earnest in it, but it's also a pretty savvy business move if you really do want to stay to exert as much pressure as you can to get that winning hand.
If that, what'd you say, 2.5 by 8 years or something?
That was the rumor, not confirmed, but that's what the rumor was.
That is, say whatever you want about the Lightning being 18 million over the cap. That contract, if that went through the league office, that would have been flagged for cap circumvention right there. That is a contract that is bought out in 3 or 4 years or something like that, and that's shenanigans right there. So not that I'm glad he didn't take that, but that would have been flagged pretty. That's just a weird contract.
There's no way that he's going to play more than maybe 1 year after this contract's up, much less an additional 3.
And you know what? At least he's going to the West Coast. We're not going to have to see him and get reminded of him like seeing your girlfriend on the street or some ex-girlfriend on the street or something like that. Out of sight, out of mind. But me personally, I'm a closet Ducks fan, so I still get to watch and enjoy and cheer for him when I catch the odd Ducks game if I'm feeling sad and want to watch them lose or something. But the absolute worst part about Alex Killorn going to the Ducks is they traded Andre Schuster away like 3 days before this. So he doesn't even have his best friend.
That would have been quite the reunion there. I want to throw it to our listeners and viewers as well. Like, what do you guys think? Let us know at RBLR Lightning. Are you a little upset about Alex Killorn leaving and all the talk he had? Joe, you make a great point. That's a great way to put some pressure on the Lightning. But to me, that makes it even worse. Like you just
either way. No, he loves the area. But I mean, and he's probably serious. I don't think the people were being used, but if he wanted to do it, that's a smart way of doing it. But at any rate, I wish him the absolute best. I'm super happy that he's going to get ridiculously paid. I think overpaid personally by a little bit, but good for him. He got his cups. And we'll welcome you back to the Tampa Bay area with open arms once you're done out there in Anaheim.
I smell a future associate coach. Do the Jeff Halpern,
Could definitely see that. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of onions being cut in Emily when he does return, because Lightning have been getting better and better at their thank you video. They've had to do a lot recently because somebody posted another picture of the 2020 Stanley Cup champions photo and just all the faces being blurred or blacked out when they leave. And it's just getting bigger and bigger. And that's the price you got to pay when you go to 3 straight Stanley Cup. It's hard to keep these guys around.
And the salary cap handcuffs you.
It really has. We need that cap jump badly, and it just next year. But unfortunately, it's a year too late for us.
I know that picture you're talking about, and a lot of that's going around a lot. But I think, man, if we could keep all of like the best players like Stamkos, Kuch, Vazzy, Point, Sergachev, Sorelli, lump whoever you want, from those back-to-back teams. If we can keep all of the A-level players, I think we're doing something right. Yeah, it's a
It's a hell
shame
of a
there
list
have
of
to be
names.
it's
Yeah.
a shame there has to be some cap casualties, but at least we kept the primo guys,
The core.
Exactly, the core. And I hate saying the core because it kind of limits you to like four. There's more of them. Chernak is one of them. Sorelli is one of them. Like, I think we are truly blessed that we're even able to keep that many of them players. And now they're all on long-term deals, and we know what they are, and they're still able to improve. I think we are truly blessed in that scenario.
Well, we were talking about, are the Lightning better off now than they were last year? Listen, if you've got Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Andrei Vasilevsky, Victor Hedman, Mikhail Sergachev, I don't care who else you have around those guys. You've got a chance to win. Those guys are that good. And the Lightning still have a lot of great pieces. I didn't even mention Brandon Hagel. There's a lot of great pieces on this team still, even though we have lost a lot of guys. But that's the cap text. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap things up here, guys, is we talked about it when Brandon Hagel made that Instagram post, and we tried to decipher it, and we were I was 100% sure he was signing his extension on July 1st. It hasn't happened yet. No announcement. There were also a lot of talks about Steven Stamkos potentially signing an extension. Again, both those guys, their contracts are up next season, but as the Lightning are known to do, is they like to extend those big names early before it even gets to free agency. However, this kind of surprised me. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. JBB came out and said, of course, that's a priority for us, but I don't expect it anytime soon. So maybe we jumped the gun a little bit on that Instagram post by Brandon Hagel. I personally think it is still coming. I had the graphic ready to go, and I hope it does. But what are your thoughts there for the extensions for Hagel and Stamkos?
Speculation is fun, right? I mean, that's fun because that was an odd post. There's still probably something behind it, and maybe they were close and just haven't been able to fully finish it. With I think, well, I mean, it's fair to say that JV was freaking busy, so maybe they've got the majority of the details figured out and need to follow back up. And if it is a priority, staying at the same rate, there's a huge looming question mark as to what's going to happen to the cap next year. Now, if I'm a player, I might hold out in order to see what it's going to be, to see if I can't leverage a little bit extra from the team if the cap goes substantially enough and they can afford it.
Joe, that is a really good point. That's what a lot of teams are kind of banking on right now, and players and their agents are banking on the cap going up. I think the projected number, it might not be true. Knowing Gary Bettman, it probably won't be true. I hate seeing teams bet on the cap going up, but the projected number is $4 million. So he might be betting on himself and saying, man, I might be able to squeeze an extra mil, 1.5, even maybe $2 million out of this team, or maybe a better suitor or something like that. But I think he might be betting on himself. So it honestly might be the smart thing to do for the player. Personally, I wish you'd just take the 6x6 and run. Or not run, but stay with the team.
I think Stamkos will sign for a little bit less. But you guys are right. That's a good point about the uncertainty of the cap, because there's a chance it could technically not go up, although it is expected to go up, and we don't know how much it's going to go up. Matt, I've actually heard $4 million on the low end. I've heard some predictions as high as $6 or $7 million, which would be amazing. But that depends on a lot of factors, how much money the NHL makes and all of that stuff. But the good news is the Lightning technically don't have to worry about that until it's just a little bit of I was ready for that Brandon Hagel extension. I was so excited for it, but we're unfortunately going to have to wait a little bit longer. Joe, I hope it's what you mentioned, that they're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and we'll get that extension relatively soon.
So I do have one thing. We've welcomed a lot of new faces, but definitely the more significant thing was waving goodbye to the one Alex Killorn and Ross Colton and Corey Perry and Ian Cole and Belmar. But the Killorn, that is the big one. Could you guys give me one of your favorite Killorn memories to send the show off? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but we've got.
I got
so
one.
many.
I got one right off the top of my head. Was actually one of the kind of joke press conferences that he did when we had Fitzpatrick as the quarterback for the Bucks and Deshaun Jackson. They did like this thing where Fitzpatrick came out with all of Deshaun Jackson's like gold chain and wearing his shirt and stuff, and then for the press conference for the Lightning the next game, Killorn had like this big chain and had very similar clothes, just kind of hamming it up, and that's what I was saying. That personality wise, he's a lot more visible to the fans, and that's one that comes
The
to
two
mind
Harvard
instantly.
guys.
Jake, do you have one?
There's so many to choose from. I kind of rattled a couple of them off at the beginning when I was talking about Killorn. But my favorite, honestly, I'd have to go with the goal he scored against the Chicago Blackhawks in the 2015. I mean, that celebration is iconic, and that goal was unbelievable.
That's one
The way
of the
he
best tips of all
deflected it off the behind him with the toe of the skate. I don't remember exactly how he did it, but it was such an amazing goal, and then his celebrations were always fantastic. But I'm gonna go with that one. The jet ski one is also a big iconic one too. Matt, what about you? What's yours?
So I got two. I'll do one on the ice. This was only a couple of years ago. It was the 2021 season. It was just a regular season game between the Lightning and the Hurricanes. It was when no fans were in attendance, and it was Marty Nate just skating down the wing with the puck, and Killorn comes out of nowhere and flattens him, runs into a brick wall. I mean, it's one of the best hits since the salary cap. I urge you to go look up Alex Killorn, Marty Natchez. It is a beautiful textbook clean hit, and then he pumps Jake Gardner's eyes shut. That's one of my favorite moments on the ice. And then, Jake, you stole my thunder. The cup on the jet ski, man. I mean, that's one of the most iconic cup moments right there. Not even killer moments, but cup moments. That right there.
He posted that picture to announce his signing with the Anaheim Ducks. That was the picture he posted.
He won't be seeing that cup again anytime soon. I'll tell you that.
Hey, he got his money. He'll be happy.
Yep.
Hey, we'll throw it to the fans as well. Let us know in the comments on Twitter at RBR Lightning. Let us know your favorite Alex Killorn moment. We'd love to hear.
God, that's a hit.
What you guys have to say. Oh, did you just look up the hit? Is that what we're snickering about over here? And for those of you that don't know, if you're not watching here on YouTube, I highly recommend you come check it out so you can see Joe's reaction to seeing the hit as well. But all right, guys, that's going to do it for us in today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Don't forget to follow us at RBLR Sports Lightning so you don't miss out on any future episodes. You can like and subscribe here. And please, if you enjoyed the episode, give us a share. It helps us out a lot, and we really appreciate it. But until the next time, we'll talk to you later. And go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.